Right, once you have done the outline of your tail and the outlines of your fins, you're ready to start making the 3D form. That's where the sculpture now starts to be raised from the paper. Here's an example of a nice one. Now, you can just about make out here that the outline curves out. So it starts quite low, quite close to the body towards the face, and then it curves outwards here at the side and then comes in again towards the tail. And again on the other side, it starts lower, so closer to the paper. So the paper will be where the middle line is. So it starts closer at the end and starts to curve out like this, and then come down again towards the tail. Think of it like a rugby ball shape. You need to be aiming to create a rugby ball shaped form with the highest section in the middle of the body and the lowest section, so sections closest to the paper, towards the face and towards the tail. Okay. Now, if your design has a section where you have a side fin, you will add that last, so don't worry about that for now, and we'll also add the eye afterwards. Okay, we're going to make the main form the shape of the body. Take a piece of wire. Now, I personally find it easiest to start with the highest section, so one of the lines in the middle, so that you have something to gauge your other lines by. So I'm going to start by creating this line here. Okay, so again, I'm going to slide it underneath. I'm going to hold it very, very tight with my finger and my thumb, and then I'm going to use my other finger here and thumb to carefully wrap that wire around the body, okay, 3 times, and then cut off the excess if you need. Now, you need to think about proportions when you're doing this. You need to think about how far away from the paper you want this middle line to be. Okay, so I'm going to use my fingers and my thumbs to gently curve that line upwards. Okay. Now, if I show you this from the side, I think it will help. So, if you have a wire which is a really, really long way away from the paper, okay, that is going to create inaccurate proportions. Okay, equally, if you have a wire that is very, very close to the paper, okay, very close to the paper like that, yeah, that also is going to create inaccurate proportions because your fish will be very, very skinny. So you don't want it too skinny and you don't want it too fat like this. Okay, so I'm going to put it about here. Okay, I'm going to peel this bit of masking tape off because it's in the way. Okay, I'm going to cut this wire down because it is too long, carefully holding the other section and removing that. Then again, I'm going to slide it underneath, and I'm going to look carefully for where this line in my design joins the outline. Okay, this is really important. Get these in the right place because you're going to need to add other wires. Okay, so again, hold it tight with your finger and thumb. Gently wrap around, not touching the end, but touching the side there. Okay, then using a pair of scissors, covering that with my hand, make sure it doesn't fly into people's faces. Okay, so this is essentially your middle wire. So these ones here, these lines here, will get slowly lower as they go towards the face. These lines here will get slowly lower as they go down. Now this design has some wires which run horizontally along the fish. So I'm going to put these on first. These are going to help stabilize the shape of the sculpture. And again, I'm going to start with this middle line here. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that your wire is long enough to wrap around here and the end. Okay. Now, if you want to, you can take a piece of wire and you can move it from here backwards, wrap it around, move it to this line again, backwards, wrap it around. But you need to be very careful when you do that to make sure that you are not pulling these sides too close together. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to get quite a long piece of wire, okay? And I'm just going to cut that off, right? And I'm going to start, I think, if I'm doing this technique, so wrapping around, I would start at one of the sides, okay? If you're applying the wires individually, then you can start in the middle. So again, I'm going to hold this tight, wrapping it round. Okay. There we go. Now I'm going to gently curve this wire, so I'm smoothing it between my fingers, okay, and I'm holding it directly above the image so that I can see that my wire is following. So I'll turn that around so you can see that a little bit better. So I can see that my wire is following the black line of my design, about there. Okay? Right, then I'm going to hold it tight with my finger and thumb, and I'm gently going to wrap this around. Now, it's very important, as I said to you earlier, that you don't pull these two sides together. So don't apply pressure when you are connecting this wire, because you are going to distort the outline of your fish. Okay, so make sure your fingers and your thumbs are holding it really tightly, and just gently wrap that around. Now, when you are doing this stage, you don't need to have every single wrap very, very close, like the corkscrew effect, because this isn't a join which needs to be very stable. I'm simply moving this wire along so that now I can start from here and go back along to the tail. Now, the advantage of doing this is that you don't end up with loads and loads and loads of little joints all the way along, because that does start to look quite cluttered and can look very uncontrolled. So again, you can see that the wire was a little bit bent just from where I've been manipulating it around this line here. So I've just used my fingers and my thumbs to smooth that downwards. Again, I hold it in place tightly with my fingers. I'm going to move this one up slightly because I want it to be higher than the other one, okay? And then I carry on wrapping. When you get towards the tail end, because these lines are closer together, you won't need to wrap it around as many times. Just be very careful when you are working with this wire. Do this slowly, because remember, it has an elastic memory, so you don't want it to flick back into your face or the face of somebody sitting next to you. Then I'm going to do the middle line now. Again, I'm holding it very tight. Yeah. What will happen if you don't hold it tightly and you start to join these wires, this shape will change. See the tail get closer towards the body and it's distorting the shape. You need to watch out for this. So again, I'm just going to put that back how it should be. Okay, I'm going to smooth it, curve it outwards, holding it tightly so that I don't distort the shape of the fish, and then carefully wrapping that around. Okay. Take your time when you're doing this. This is a very important section because you don't want to take it off and find that you've got a tiny little fish where you've pulled the lines too close together. And again, with my fingers curving it down, joining it to that tail, holding it with my fingers, wrapping it around a couple of times. You don't need to do this loads and loads of times. Okay, and then coming back to finish on this line here. So again, I'm going to wrap this join about 3 times. Now, because I'm finishing the line here, I'm going to make these wraps very close together. Okay, so 3, 1, 2, 3. Carefully, either holding or with your hand, cut that section off. Now you will find that after you've done this, you need to spend a little bit of time just smoothing the wires back into place, because when you're working with it, obviously some of those become distorted. Okay. So if we now take a look at that from the side, okay, we'll see that that has started to create almost half of a rugby ball shape. So you can see that it's much lower here at the side near the tail, and it's curving upwards here to be the highest point in the middle. That's what you want. You want this nice rugby ball shape. Now, I'm going to do this tail section as well in the same way.